The diner hummed with the gentle clatter of plates and soft murmurs of morning conversations. Sunlight, warm and golden, streamed through the large front windows, making the chrome accents sparkle. Marcus, a big man with kind eyes and a thoughtful frown, sat comfortably in a booth near the back. He savored each bite of his breakfast, a plate piled high with eggs, bacon, and fluffy pancakes. He was alone, yet perfectly content, enjoying the quiet start to his day. The aroma of coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air, a familiar and comforting scent. He took a slow sip of his own coffee, watching the steam curl upwards, lost in his own peaceful world. Marcus's peaceful moment, however, was about to be broken. The diner door swung open with a bang, letting in a blast of cold air and a wave of noise. A group of 4 young men, loud and boisterous, stomped inside. Their laughter echoed too loudly, and their voices carried across the room. They wore dark clothes and had scowls on their faces, making them look mean and unfriendly. All eyes in the diner turned to them, and the gentle hum of conversation quickly died down. They seemed to enjoy being the center of attention, pushing past tables without a care. The easy morning feeling in the diner vanished, replaced by a sudden tension. The young men, still making a ruckus, scanned the diner. Their eyes landed on Marcus, who sat quietly in his booth. A sneer spread across the face of the leader, a skinny young man with sharp eyes. He nudged his friends, pointing subtly towards Marcus. Then, a low chuckle started among them, quickly growing louder. One of them mimicked eating a lot of food, while another made a silly face. They began whispering comments about Marcus's size, loud enough for others to hear. Soon, their whispers turned into outright jokes, mixed with unkind words about his skin color. They thought they were very clever and funny, enjoying their cruel game. Marcus felt a sharp pang in his chest with each hateful word. The joy of his breakfast faded, replaced by a familiar ache. He knew this feeling well, the sting of unfair judgment. Yet, he refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing him upset. He kept his gaze fixed on his plate, cutting a piece of pancake with deliberate slowness. His hands, though, gripped the fork a little tighter than before. He chewed thoughtfully, trying to make it seem as if their cruel remarks were just background noise, like the distant rumble of traffic. He focused on the taste of the syrup and the warmth of his coffee, wishing they would simply disappear. Marcus's quiet resistance only seemed to egg on the group. Seeing that their initial jabs weren't getting a reaction, they grew bolder. Their leader, with a smirk, took a few steps closer to Marcus's booth, followed by his snickering friends. Their voices became sharper, more direct. "Hey, big guy, you gonna eat all that yourself?" One of them sneered, loud enough for half the diner to hear. Another chimed in with a nasty comment about his appearance, then another about his supposed laziness. Their words were like small, sharp stones thrown at him, each one meant to sting. They seemed to enjoy making him uncomfortable, their laughter now a harsh, ugly sound. From behind the counter, Sarah, the diner owner, watched the scene unfold with growing alarm. Her kind face, usually beaming with a welcoming smile, was now creased with worry. She had known Marcus for years. He was a regular, always polite and quiet. Seeing him being treated so poorly made her stomach churn. Her hands, busy wiping down the counter, paused. She wanted to step in right away, to tell those boys off, but she also knew that sometimes getting involved could make things worse. Still, the cruel laughter and mean words were getting louder, and Marcus's silence seemed to invite more aggression. Her heart pounded, wondering what to do. Taking a deep breath, Sarah decided she couldn't stand by any longer. She walked from behind the counter, her steps firm but her voice soft. "Excuse me, boys," she said, trying to sound calm. "Could you please keep your voices down? We have other customers trying to enjoy their breakfast." Her eyes briefly met Marcus's, a silent apology passing between them. The young men barely glanced at her. They mumbled something dismissive, waved a hand, and then one of them laughed even louder, making another rude joke about Marcus. They clearly thought she was just a nagging old lady and paid no mind to her request. Their disrespectful behavior only intensified. The young men's disregard for Sarah, and their continued mockery, was the last straw for Marcus. His attempts to remain invisible had failed. The sting of their words, combined with the disrespectful treatment of a kind woman, ignited a quiet resolve within him. He slowly put down his fork, the metal clinking softly against his plate. He pushed his half-eaten breakfast aside. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, Marcus lifted his head. He took a deep, steadying breath, his chest expanding slightly. His eyes, which had been downcast, now met the mocking stares of the young men. There was no anger in his gaze, but a quiet power that made their laughter falter for a moment. The young men, momentarily quieted by Marcus's unexpected gaze, exchanged puzzled glances. They expected anger, maybe fear, but not this calm, steady stare. Then, Marcus spoke. His voice was deep, not raised in anger, but carrying a weight that made every word clear in the suddenly silent diner. "I have served this country," he stated, his eyes holding each of the young men. "I am a former United States Marine." The simple words hung in the air, a stark contrast to their petty insults. There was no boastfulness, just a simple statement of fact, delivered with an authority that left no room for doubt. The shift in his demeanor was profound, from quiet diner patron to a man who commanded respect. The effect of Marcus's words was immediate and striking. The snickering and mean comments died in the young men's throats. Their faces, moments ago twisted into sneers and mocking grins, now contorted into expressions of genuine surprise and confusion. The leader's jaw dropped slightly, his eyes wide. His friends looked at each other, then back at Marcus, their previous bravado completely gone. The harsh laughter that had filled the diner just moments before vanished, replaced by an awkward silence. They stood frozen, clearly not knowing how to react to this unexpected turn. The idea of the man they had been taunting being a Marine seemed to short-circuit their mean-spirited fun. Marcus let their surprise settle before speaking again, his voice still calm but firm. "I spent years serving my country," he said, looking at each young man in turn. "Just like countless brave men and women before me and beside me. We all put our lives on the line, no matter our skin color or how big we were. We did it for everyone in this country, for your freedom and mine." He paused, letting his words sink in. That kind of service, that kind of sacrifice, earns respect. Not just for me, but for anyone who has worn a uniform. Everyone deserves respect, especially those who have given so much. His words were a quiet lesson, spoken without anger, yet full of truth. "I remember one time," Marcus continued, his voice now softer. "We were stuck in a bad spot. Danger all around. It wasn't about who was biggest or fastest. It was about trust. My life depended on the guy next to me, and his on mine. We were a mix of every kind of person you can imagine, but out there, none of that mattered. We worked as one. We got through it because we respected each other and worked together like a true team. That's what courage is, not shouting insults from a safe distance, but facing hard times side by side." The young men listened, their faces now serious, some even looking down. A quiet moment passed, filled only with the low hum of the diner's kitchen. Then, one of the young men, the one who had made the first silly face, shifted his weight. His eyes, no longer mocking, darted towards his friends, then back to Marcus. His face was a little red, a sign of shame. He cleared his throat, gathering his courage. Sir," he began, his voice barely a whisper. What was it like? Being a Marine, I mean." The question hung in the air, a fragile bridge between their past meanness and a possible future of understanding. It was a small crack in their tough outer shell, a first sign that Marcus's words had truly reached them. Marcus offered a small, gentle smile, recognizing the young man's genuine curiosity. "It's about more than just fighting," he explained, his voice taking on a teaching tone. "Being a Marine means living by a code, honor, courage, and commitment. It means doing what's right, even when it's hard. It means standing up for others, not tearing them down. You learn to put the mission first, your team second, and yourself last. That sense of duty, of belonging to something bigger than yourself, stays with you forever. It shapes you into someone who respects discipline and service." He looked around at all their faces, seeing a flicker of understanding in their eyes. As Marcus spoke, the silence in the diner deepened, broken only by his calm voice. The young men, who had been so full of loud disrespect, now stood still, their heads bowed slightly. The leader, who had been so quick to sneer, looked down at his shoes. The others shifted uncomfortably. The light of understanding, mixed with a heavy dose of shame, dawned on their faces. They realized their actions were not just rude, but deeply disrespectful to someone who had done so much for their country. The easy jokes and cruel laughter now felt hollow and wrong. They felt a knot in their stomachs, understanding they had made a big, hurtful mistake. Seeing the change in the young man, and feeling a rush of relief and admiration for Marcus, Sarah stepped forward once more. This time, her voice was clear and strong, filled with respect. "Marcus," she said, catching his eye, "your breakfast is on the house today. It's the least I can do to thank you for your service to our country." She offered him a warm, genuine smile. Her offer was not just a gesture of kindness, but a public acknowledgement of his sacrifice, a way to honor him in front of the now chastened young men and the other diner patrons who had witnessed the whole scene. With Sarah's words of respect echoing in the air, the young men finally found their voices, though much softer than before. The leader, his face still flushed with a mix of shame and new understanding, stepped forward a little. "Sir," he started, his voice rough but sincere, we are really sorry. We messed up. We shouldn't have said those things." His friends nodded, their eyes downcast, mumbling their own apologies. They looked truly sorry, their earlier arrogance completely replaced by a quiet respect. It was clear that Marcus's calm words and Sarah's public show of honor had touched something deep inside them. Marcus listened to their apologies with a calm, understanding expression. He didn't gloat or scold. Instead, he simply nodded, acknowledging their words. "Apology accepted," he said, his voice still gentle. "We all make mistakes. The important thing isn't that you messed up, but what you do next. Do you learn from it? Do you try to be better? That's what truly matters." He looked directly at the leader, his gaze firm but forgiving. "Remember this feeling. Remember how it feels to treat others badly, and how it feels to apologize. Let it guide you to be kinder, to show respect to everyone, no matter who they are or what they look like." With Marcus's calm acceptance and wise words, a remarkable shift happened in the diner. The heavy tension that had filled the air lifted, like a storm cloud passing. The low hum of conversation slowly returned, but it was different now, softer, more thoughtful. The other customers, who had been holding their breath, now exhaled in quiet relief. A feeling of peace, mixed with a newfound respect for Marcus, settled over the room. The harsh glares and worried glances were gone, replaced by smiles and nods of approval. The diner was no longer a place of conflict, but a space where understanding and kindness had won the day. With apologies offered and accepted, the group of young men slowly turned to leave. The loud, swaggering entrance was a distant memory. They walked out of the diner quieter than when they came in, their shoulders slumped a little. No more harsh laughter, no more sneering. Their faces, once full of mean amusement, were now serious, even a little bit pale. The encounter had clearly shaken them, forcing them to look at their own behavior and the impact it had. They stepped back into the morning sun, carrying not just their own thoughts, but the weight of a lesson learned. With the young men gone and the diner once again filled with a comfortable quiet, Marcus picked up his fork. The half-eaten breakfast still waited for him. He took another bite, and this time, the flavors tasted right again. A sense of calm washed over him, deeper than before. It wasn't a loud, triumphant feeling, but a quiet victory. He had faced unkindness with dignity, responded to disrespect with wisdom, and perhaps, just perhaps, planted a seed of change in some young hearts. He finished his meal, enjoying the newfound peace, a small smile playing on his lips. The coffee was still warm, and the morning sun still shone. Sarah approached Marcus's table, a warm, grateful smile on her face. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Marcus," she said, her voice soft but full of emotion, "thank you. Thank you for handling that with such dignity. You showed those boys more kindness and strength than they probably deserved, and you taught them a lesson they won't soon forget." Her eyes, usually bustling with the tasks of running a diner, were now filled with admiration. "You truly are a remarkable man." Marcus simply nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of her words. He appreciated her thanks, but for him, the real reward was the hope that his actions might lead to a little more understanding in the world. As Sarah walked away, Marcus leaned back in his booth, a contemplative look on his face. He thought about how easy it would have been to get angry, to shout back, to let their words wound him deeply. But his years as a Marine had taught him more than just fighting skills. They had taught him discipline, patience, and the power of a calm, strong voice. He realized that sometimes standing up for yourself isn't about yelling, but about speaking truth, and that teaching others, even those who seem lost, is a different kind of battle, one fought with understanding rather than anger. It was a reminder that every interaction holds a chance to make a difference. The sun continued its gentle rise, casting longer shadows across the diner floor. The events of the morning served as a powerful reminder that true strength isn't found in loud words or cruel jokes, but in dignity, patience, and the courage to speak truth. It showed that respect is earned, not demanded, and that understanding can bridge even the widest gaps of prejudice. Marcus's calm voice, his quiet authority, had done more than just silence a group of bullies. It had opened a path for them to see beyond their own narrow views. This story, unfolding in a simple diner, highlighted the enduring power of kindness and the impact one person can have. The morning in the diner was more than just a meal. It was a small play about life. It showed how a simple moment, one that started with unkindness, could turn into a lesson for everyone. It taught that strength is not about being loud or mean, but about being brave and kind. This story reminds us that every day, in small places like a diner, we have chances to make the world a bit better. We can choose to be angry, or we can choose to teach with patience. And sometimes, one calm voice can change more than any shout ever could, proving that even little moments can teach big lessons about how we should treat each other.